pleasure.
All right, and I personally, I'm a very big fan of your dolls.
You are?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm very intrigued, and it looks like very mysterious and beautiful all at the same time.
Well, thank you very much.
And yes, and I would like my viewers also to know more about you.
Okay.
So since I know you personally for some time, but again, I want viewers to have an idea about what you're doing.
Okay.
So can you please introduce yourself for the viewers?
Absolutely. My name is Jax Rula. I am an award-winning fiber artist.
Okay.
I started making dolls in about 2005,
Okay.
and am essentially self-taught, but have also learned under some fabulous doll artists, taking workshops and that sort of thing.
All right.
And my dolls have evolved over the last, well, I guess we're almost at 13 years now for making dolls, to this sort of doll that you see here today.
Yeah, very beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, of all things, okay, why you happen to pick doll making and got into fabrics?
Sure. I live with an artist who is an abstract artist, and he is very excitable. Mm-hmm. So anytime I tried to express myself art-wise, he would get so excited, and he would go, ooh, 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 I can help, and he'd grab it and he'd run off to his studio. So I, in order to express my creativity, had to find something, some sort of medium he knew nothing about. And in fact, he's terrified of my sewing machine, and because he's usually covered in paint, he's not allowed in my sewing studio. So it allows me to be fully creative without him running away with the idea, although he has been a huge supporter in being able to entice me to push my creativity to the limits, which is a wonderful thing. We work very, very well off of each other. I started with knitting, actually, learning how to knit, and the joy of creating a fabric and having it sort of appear out of two sticks and a string was really exciting to me. And then one day I happened to knit a doll for a friend of mine. You can get little patterns for cute little stuffies.
Okay.
And the whole idea of that 3D process, that 3D doll process, I found really exciting. I like the personality that comes out of them. Doll, I know when a doll is finished when they make me laugh, right? So, so there's a personality that emerges as I make a doll. So I went from knitting to fabric, because I have a whole group of quilting friends, and we all work with fabric together. And so it was a natural, inevitable one step into another process.
That's great. So, the whole process of creating something out of nothing.
Yeah.
That kind of excites you.
Isn't that what art is all about?
Yes, definitely.
Yes, to be able to take this idea and produce it so other people can appreciate what's going on in your head.
That's true.
Right? Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your favorite work.
My favorite work.
Yeah.
My favorite work is always my most recent work. Only because I feel that every piece takes me one more level into expertise. I manage to maybe slightly master one more technique a little bit more and more. And so it's always my most recent work. That being said, I do have a couple of my faves here. I have Miss Penelope Patterson and Imperia, daughter of Dana. So this style of doll that I'm working with right now is called a stump doll. So they don't have legs. They actually stand up on their own. Which is nice because it can take me over a day to do feet and over a day to do shoes. So,
over a day?
Yeah. So these ones don't need that. And for me, there's always a struggle in doll art between the concept of something that's playable and something that's sculptural. The art doll world is a very diverse one. You can make art dolls out of just about anything. The majority of artists use clay or do some sort of porcelain style doll. But there is an entire cloth doll group as well. So these are all worked with cloth. So this is called soft sculpture, where I'm needle sculpting the face. It's essentially a ball stuffed with teddy bear stuffing. And then I take a needle and thread and I sculpt the face to get the nose and the eyes and all of that. So these ones, I've enjoyed this particular series because I get to use my embroidery machine. So all of this is embroidery patterns that I have manipulated and worked with the color to match the
Wow.
fabrics, and then create a doll that matches that. So, so yeah, this is the style of doll I've been working with recently. I have done a lot of dolls with legs, a lot of dolls that sort of sit or require a chair, but because there are a lot of people who buy art dolls buy it for that sculptural
Right.
process, I like this style of doll because she does hold herself up. She holds herself in a pose, yet she can still be slightly playable. Like, you know, things can come apart, her fingers can be bent.
Wow.
She can be posed, her arms can be put into a different position if you truly want to. She's
Oh, I thought
completely
it's
wired.
stationary. All right.
Yeah, yeah.
And so the whole process of doll making, right? Approximately how much time do you invest in one doll?
Isn't that a fun question? And I know artists get this a lot. And I know one of the classic answers to this is, of course, your entire life. Because it's your entire experience that has brought you up to any particular art piece, right?
Right.
But because that's a question that has been asked of me a lot, I actually started timing how many hours go into each doll.
Right.
So depending on the doll and depending on the work, anywhere from about 30 to 50 hours a
50
doll.
hours.
Yeah, yeah.
It's very good. I mean,
Because these start from scratch. These are all just flat pieces
Right.
of fabric that I then create out
Great.
of. Yeah.
because I think people need to know like what goes behind the lines, right?
Right.
They see a doll and probably they don't know how much work an artist put into it.
And you can say that for almost any style of art, right?
Yes.
Yes.
That's true.
But you're right. There are definitely styles of doll art where like there's an entire industry of ball jointed dolls
Yeah.
where you actually buy the doll blank.
Right, right.
And you take it apart and you maybe take the head apart and rework it and then paint it up and then put it all back together.
Yeah.
But no, everything for me,
From
for
the
these
scratch.
dolls is from scratch. These all start as flat pieces of fabric, yeah.
That's very interesting. No, like every person is unique, every doll is unique, I guess.
Yes, because I'm not actually a master of this medium yet, I play with
Come on, you have one.
fabric has a stretch. Fabric stretches in different ways depending on how you pull it. So depending on how I cut a face will determine whether the stretch is in her cheekbones or in her nose or in her chin.
Yeah.
And it's really hard when you're working with 2D in a doll. I don't know if you know anything about sewing. Everything's upside down and backwards. Because when you sew it, then you have to flip it inside out
Oh,
to
wow.
hide the seams on the inside, right?
Yeah.
So everything right away is backwards and kind of upside down. So
Interesting world.
it's not an easy thing to translate a 2D drawing into a 3D fabric sculpture because you're constantly flipping things inside out. And, yeah,
Wow, good to
yeah,
know.
yeah.
And how do you give a personality to a doll?
The personality emerges. It really does. I do my best to sculpt what I think is a small nose, but obviously with Penelope that didn't quite work.
She looks beautiful.
So, yeah, and there are definitely women with the Barbra Streisand nose, so I don't have a problem with that. And so I paint the faces according to the final shape of the sculpt, and that's how their personalities emerge. I have done very few portrait dolls
Okay.
where I've actually worked off an image of a person, and they had managed to have worked. I don't know really how I did it, but it worked. I did a project that required a few dolls of historical significance, and I worked off of the photographs of the people. And you know, when I'm doing a doll like this, there's kind of an animated feel to it. Their eyes are bigger,
Yeah.
you know, and they're slightly animated. People, if I do a portrait doll, their eyes are much smaller, and you know,
That's
everything's a little bit.
more realistic.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, beautiful. Well, thanks a lot for sharing all that information.
Oh, my pleasure.
And what do you are you into some other art form apart from dolls?
Well, working in fabric allows you to go all sorts of different places. The one place I don't go is making clothes. Okay, I can't do curtains either because they're never the same. I can't actually sew a straight line.
Okay.
So I have determined as an artist, and I'm sure most artists go through the same process of trying to create art that falls in all sorts of different price points.
Okay.
Right? So I've made a series of small little dolls.
Oh, these ones?
Those
Okay.
are my small little dolls.
Wow.
That are a much smaller price point, obviously, than the big dolls. Yeah, those are my little blessing dolls.
Right.
And very recently, I have moved into the embroidery hoop work, so,
Okay.
so a little bit of wall art.
Right.
All following my Grand Fabrication project.
So these are all your works then?
All the embroidery hoops are, yeah. Yeah.
And that's actually a different feel altogether, I believe, like how you figure that as an art form. Like I see it's very interesting.
Are you familiar with the fiber arts?
No.
So this community, and I know you're relatively new to our community, is very famous for its quilt art. We have a quilt festival every year.
Wow.
And we're...
I'm pretty sure nobody knew about that, right?
A lot of the fiber arts aren't paid attention to, like most visual arts, because, I don't know, it's maybe a sexist thing. It's deemed as, you know, kitchen folk art.
No, really, it looks beautiful.
Well, thank you. So in our community, we have a huge population of Mennonites, and these ladies quilt like nobody's business, and a lot of other quilters as well. And so the quilt art is phenomenal, and that's fiber art. That's taking fabric and turning it into other images, turning it 3D. All sorts of things come out of that, because quilts
Wow.
aren't just for the bed. They are designed to hang as wall art, a lot of these ones.
Amazing.
So I have sort of taken that process of creating art with fabric and made it a little bit more accessible, using the embroidery hoop as the frame, sort of to keep it in the, to keep it in the genre of being an art, a fiber artist. So the embroidery hoop is what you normally do hand embroidery in, turning that into a frame to hold my little scene of the Grand River.
Wow.
Yeah. Welcome to the Grand River watershed. That's where you live now.
Personally autographed.
That's right.
Very nice. Well, thanks a lot for sharing all that information.
My pleasure.
It's been a very interesting talk, and we got to know about the doll making, about the fabric art. A real pleasure, and hope to see you again in this channel.
I'm sure we will. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.